So this next session, amazing session, Ready, Set, Go, tapping into the $20 billion market. And I'm really excited to welcome, sorry, that's really loud, Lisa Suennen, Managing Partner of Venture Valkyrie, and she's going to be leading this session. I love this New Year's resolution. New Year's resolution is to clear out all of the wearable fitness tracking devices she has sitting in her drawer. Let's welcome them all to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? No, we're having a little bit of sound challenges here. Gentlemen? No, you got to sit on the same side.
Same side, all right.
That way I can look at you. Yeah, I got your picture right there. I know you're everywhere. So nice to see everybody. Thanks for hanging in there with us this afternoon. This is a market, this over 50 market that I've been really interested in, particularly as it becomes more and more personally relevant. And I've done actually a fair amount of work with AARP thinking about this area, which has been a lot of fun. My firm is focused on helping mostly large companies and venture funds think about digital health strategy, how to incorporate that into what they do, and how to invest in those areas. And I spent the last 15, 16 years in venture capital, and prior to that, running a startup focused on behavioral health. And so this has been an interesting journey, thinking about how all of these technologies, if you go out on the floor, really apply to the later marketplace. So I'm delighted to have these gentlemen here to talk about that. Jody, maybe you could introduce yourself real quick.
So my name is Jody Holtzman. I'm Senior Vice President of a group called Thought Leadership. If anybody has a more pretentious title, meet me at the back of the room.
I'm hoping Aidan's not in thought following.
Right. My joke is that I have the ship. We got control of the ship. Our group has the mission to find ways for AARP to stimulate innovation in the marketplace that'll benefit people over 50. We run a annual pitch day, a demo day, where we put startups in front of prospective investors. And what we do differently is we also put them in front of the consumer. It's fascinating that this is the consumer electronics show, but no consumers. So yesterday we actually brought 50 of them and gave them access, AARP members who live in Las Vegas, gave them access to the consumer electronics show.
Did they like all the pet toys out there?
Yeah, they loved them.
My favorite so far is the little bow tie on the dog. Glorious. Aidan?
Aidan Petrie. I am a reasonably pretentious title of Chief Innovation Officer at Ximedica, and I work at the front end. We are a product development house focused solely on the healthcare and wellness industry, and essentially human-centered design, taking products through the market. Almost all our customers are over 50. But we're designers and engineers and regulatory folk, and our mission in life is to bring great technologies through the FDA and get them onto the market.
Excellent. So, Jody, you guys publish every year a report kind of scoping the market for the over 50 in healthcare, and you just refreshed that recently. And when you did that, the market grew from 20 billion opportunity to 30 billion opportunity.
Right.
So how did that happen?
Okay, well, the report itself, which everybody can download it for free, if you go to www.aarp.org/innovation50plus, P-L-U-S. It's called Health Innovation Frontiers. And we were focused on the out-of-pocket consumer health and wellness space. We kept hearing from people, every time startups would have something, they say, well, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for that? And we basically just rejected the very notion that there isn't a market unless it's reimbursable. And so we looked at 32 different unmet needs, bucketed into these 9 categories like medication adherence, management, aging with vitality, which is vision and hearing, and brain fitness, care navigation, aging in place technology. Those are all things focused on the 50 plus explicitly. Then there are things that are equally relevant to the 50 plus, diet and nutrition, physical fitness, et cetera. So when we first did this study, we were hearing from the venture capital community in particular saying, okay, if you want us to invest in this space, where should we invest? And so we wanted to size those markets. And as Lisa said, these 9 categories in aggregate 18 months ago when we first did the first study was about $20 billion. That's an aggregate forecast over 5 years revenue.
So your valuation of that market's going up faster than the valuation of digital health companies. So how did that happen?
Yeah, but the interesting thing is not all the categories grew. So there were some categories like medication adherence management that dropped by half. Something like care navigation jumped significantly. Social engagement jumped significantly. But that's, the basis of the study is looking at what's happening in the market. It was where's the activity, where's the adoption, and frankly, in this space, adoption is a major challenge, particularly if you have branding names like.
I think you've got the technology companies are suddenly focusing in on and seeing how big and how many components there are to the healthcare market, and the other is that people over 50 are getting increasingly concerned. They can see that the option to being healthy is not a good one. So there is a significant rising interest there. They're much less passive about their health than they have been.
So where are you in seeing the most innovation? What sectors and what types of things are people coming to you to build?
Our innovation comes out of 2 places. It is either provider-driven, but just because of where we are in the market, it's either provider-driven, so that's coming out of hospitals, typically working with patients and surgeons and nurses and so forth, where it's driven by the user. And then we do a lot of work with universities. So we've got probably 10 programs going right now with technologies that were born out of MIT or Harvard or partners or the various labs. And at some point we have to bring the 2 together. So you need a technology and you need a customer. You've got to have a customer need. So they're driven in very different ways. But those would be the major sources. And there are things like, so we're doing a lot of work with neuroplasticity therapies that will facilitate faster brain action.
I could use that.
And these are therapies. So this is clinical side of stuff. Neuromodulation, so that would be devices that can turn things like your bladder on and off through your smartphone. The compliance, drug deliveries is huge, so better, because drugs are expensive, better use of drugs and so forth. So those are some of the big ones, and then we do a lot of work in robotics as well.
So Jody, you mentioned that there's some categories that are kind of waning in interest. Why? Why is medication compliance waning in interest when it's such a big problem?
Because the drugs are no fun to take.
Well, those drugs, yeah.
I just think it's a real challenge, and so for example, and my parents know this. I talk about them from the stage all the time. They take about 20 drugs a day. Most of the solutions, with the exception of the traditional pill box, can't handle that many. So solutions really have not come up that address the realities of life for people with multiple chronic diseases. So my mom, 3 chronic diseases, stress fracture, herniated disc, and she's the Energizer Bunny,
That was like
but she
a total
keeps
HIPAA
going.
violation right there.
I know,
Okay.
but she knows it. But not the first time. And wait till I tell you about my dad. But 7 years of remission from lung cancer. But the point is that you approach somebody like my folks, and you give it to them, and it's like, I already have a system. It's called bottles on the table, and I divide them this way, and there's a learning curve that is too much time, too much trouble, and frankly doesn't address just the range of pills that they have to take.
We did a major bit of research for probably the largest pharmacy in the country, and I think we spent 2,000 hours in people's homes on that exact subject, and there was everybody had their system. It is really complicated to put together, and it's a very, very hard task. But this was 10 years ago, and people have had a shot at it every year. It's a tough one.
So what is the biggest challenge you're working on right now? What is the area that that you're working on that needs? Is this the one that needs a solution, or is it something else that you're really trying to solve?
I'm going down
We're
a
going to
list.
get you that neuroplasticity
I'm
thing.
going down a list of various things that I could say. I think things like the challenge for us is really helping inventors understand what the FDA is all about. And I mean, we see countless examples where they failing to understand where the FDA comes in and where it doesn't, and how to avoid getting in trouble with the FDA. That's really where we play. So that the areas are those sort of brain health, behavioral health. Those are really interesting. And what we see, that when you can see what you can achieve if you can facilitate neuroplasticity, it's mind-blowing. It is incredible.
I mean, Cologuard just won an award, and I just want to say something about this company. The company is Exact Sciences, and this is a company that got simultaneous approval from both CMS for reimbursement and the FDA. Lisa gave me one other example that did that, but that was huge, right? And then partnered with Mayo as the first player to adopt this. But to me, the innovation part of this is they are addressing this huge problem that people do not get colonoscopies.
Right.
And so here is a way to not have this invasive procedure, but you find out if you really do or don't need to do it. I mean, it's totally breakthrough. So it addresses all the issues, right? Greater access to healthcare, lowers cost to the system, and improves quality of care.
Speed of diagnostics. Any place that you can speed up diagnosis, the advantages are enormous.
And by that, do you mean it should be done in the home as much as possible, or?
At any time that you can shorten, it's like with skin cancer. I think the average time to see a physician for skin cancer is 39 days. It will metastasize in something like 24.
I better make my appointment.
I know. We're
all
doing a big
screwed.
program on this, and those are huge areas. But there's also the time involved, and
Right.
the time saving and the money saving is big as well.
When you talk about FDA products, they're generally more unusual, unique, not as me too, because it takes so much more effort, generally. I mean, like a Cologuard, that's a pretty unusual thing. You're not seeing 50 of those. But when you think about a lot of the products that are being built for this market and the young companies, I see 50 home monitoring things, 50 medication management things, 100 of this, 100 of that. It's very hard to differentiate. How do you differentiate? And how do you know who's going to win?
I think I think design is a key one. Get away from big beige and boring, and to make things intuitive. I mean, when you have young designers who are designing things that for this space, are antithetical to the tactile capabilities of an older hand. Well, there's a problem. It's either easy to use or it's really hard to use. Things like hearing aids. Right, because the really great new hearing aids are tiny.
Right.
Right, but really hard to put it in and out. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's building a brand. Right. So if you are an over-the-counter or consumer facing company, you got to build a brand.
For that 50-plus market, the empathy that anybody needs to have when they're developing a product, they've got to understand the market, because the motivators for a 50-plus are very different. And what they're looking for, the sort of results they're looking for out of a product and so forth.
So since so many of these new companies are started by 24-year-old guys, whose parents aren't even 50 a lot of the times, how do you help them bridge that gap in understanding what the patient, the client, whomever needs, the consumer?
You get out into the field. I mean, it's a classic contextual research. It's going into people's homes. I mean, we travel all over the world, going into people's homes and getting those companies to understand. I mean, again, there is process involved, but it's really about aligning the capabilities, the needs, the cognitive ergonomics of individuals. People over 50 have nothing wrong, a lot of times have absolutely nothing wrong with them, but things aren't working quite as well as they were. So it's a weird gray zone of you're not, you don't
Not
have a
dead
medical,
yet, but you're just
you're
on
not
your
dead,
way.
you're dead yet, you don't have anything wrong with you, but you're sort of aware that there's things falling off.
Such an
here.
uplifting conversation. One of the things that we've observed is just how few of the startups actually have been in the field, have gotten feedback. They have one touch point, which is a parent or a grandparent, and then they generalize that experience to a market, and that's not going to cut it. So for example, we had in our first event in New Orleans a company that made a PERS device, and it was a watch. And if you remember the first generation sport watches, they were these big, clunky, ugly plastic watches. The technology that was in it was really cool. The thing was ugly as sin. And this 71-year-old woman gets up, she's decked out, and she just says, if you want me to wear that, you better glam it up. Had nothing to do with the functionality, had nothing to do with the technology. And these 27-year-old MIT grads were like, what was that about? It was like, you mean these older people are interested in, that? On the other hand, what it also means is that...
You're probably the number one purchaser of those Swarovski crystals were walking by out there.
You're right. But what it also meant was if it's not viewed as a PERS device, but it's viewed as a piece of jewelry, you could sell more than one.
Yeah, well, that's the misfit theory, right?
Exactly.
So what are the big companies, the known brands that have figured this market out and have elegant solutions for healthcare? Are there any?
I think it's a stretch.
One of our biggest clients is in the paper goods market, so very focused on incontinence and all those things. And they certainly, those sort of companies are they understand the consumer well. And I think they are following, they've certainly focused on that as being a major component of their growth over the next few years. So I think they are more savvy about on the customer side than most, and then they drive the technology.
You raised a good one, and the company that you're very familiar with, Butterfly, has definitely addressed that, a very sensitive issue of fecal incontinence, and done it in a very...
They like to call it mild bowel leakage.
They do?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a little better sounding.
Yes. Well, that's where the branding and rebranding comes in.
Right, but
It's quite the potty theme today between the cat box and anyways.
Yeah, but very elegant, very sensitive, to this embarrassing, condition. So.
So when you think about then the newcomer companies, are there ones that you feel good about? Are there ones you think, oh, they get it? Do you have a good example of one that you've worked with, either one of you, that's like, wow, they got it. They got the consumer.
I talk about Lively a lot, and I think of the players in that space, they do get it. And
can you explain what that is?
So Lively is a startup. They've closed 2 rounds of investment. They've raised about $7 million so far. They were incubated by Maveron, the venture fund. It started out as just remote monitoring, but a very non-invasive remote monitoring. And they worked with a design perspective with the same designers that designed Nest. So the design factor was really very nice. And there are these sensors you just put around the house, and it develops a pattern of daily living. And if the pattern breaks, you get a notification. But then what happened was the market pulled them to also address the emergency response need. And so everybody's seen the Life Alert commercials. I've fallen, I can't get up. A commercial I hate, but frankly, why is it still on? Because it works. On the other hand, all of those devices just yell, I'm old and frail. And that's why half of them are in a drawer that were bought for the older person by the adult child. And Lively came up with a watch. That's a really cool looking watch. Any of us would want to wear it. You can make it digital or analog, has a button on the side, and it's an activity tracker, and it works in conjunction with actually you have the option. You can work it in conjunction with the other sensors, or it can be standalone.
Free range.
Free range, right.
Aidan, how about you? Have you seen one that you really like?
There's a company that, to be open, we work with, Helios Medical. They have a device that essentially it facilitates for people with traumatic brain injury. It allows them to overcome gait and balance issues. But it looks like a piece of sports equipment. You have to use it. You use it via your tongue. Your tongue is the best connector to your brain. And you wear this on your tongue, and
You wear it on your tongue.
you put it on your tongue, and
Is it like
sends,
a piercing, or
No,
how do you
it's
wear
got
it on your tongue?
it's got 64 electrodes that fire off in sequences.
I'm not sure if that sounds really icky or really kinky or what.
You know what? It works unbelievably well. It works. But in terms
Total
of
pragmatist.
it's a beautiful. The design is great. It works really well, and I think it'll be a game changer.
How long
for
do you
them
have to
for-
keep this attached to your
You
tongue?
do 25 minutes once a day while doing a particular exercise, and it then
I'm afraid to ask what exercise that is, actually.
you'll get better at any exercise you do.
Wow, okay, that's really interesting. I haven't seen that one, but I'm going to look into it. So one of the things I've heard people say is, especially the younger entrepreneurs, is if you focus on this over 50 market, it just makes your company less cool. It's just not cool from a branding standpoint. What do you think about that?
I think that
horse
we are,
buckies.
I think I'm the definition of cool.
Yeah, I agree. Nobody
you-
looks more cool than you.
Well, we've empty nested.
I like your beard.
I just put it on, actually. We've empty nested. We got more money. We're more comfortable. Over 50-year-olds are more comfortable with themselves. We're not making rash decisions. We're statistically happier, right? So isn't that like what cool is?
I suppose.
Yeah.
Now you're free to make rash decisions.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
So you don't agree either?
No, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, again, it gets to the issue of what's the definition of cool. And typically, cool is the new thing. So there's plenty of opportunity for new things. In fact, I just bought a new guitar, and it's cool.
Does it have like really big frets so you can see them?
No. No, it's actually a Les Paul, and I wanted some P90s.
But I mean,
for
there's
those
a
of you
mar-
that know what those are.
That's a market that Harley Davidson, when they focused on
Right.
on the over 50s, they adapted their bikes. They're still extremely cool, but they're adapted to certain needs.
And they came out with a trike.
Well, exactly.
Right?
Harley
That sounds super cool.
Harley Davidson came out with a tricycle in recognition of who their dominant, customers were.
What's cooler than falling over?
I've fallen and I've been run over by my trike. Okay. So if you could name the one biggest untapped opportunity out there for the over 50 market in healthcare, what is it? What's the one thing that somebody's got to solve because they'll make zillions?
It's all about the brain, I think.
The brain?
All about the brain.
Any particular slant on it?
I think there will be an absolute deluge of focus and innovation on products that facilitate many, many, many aspects of true brain health. Out of that comes behavioral health. There are things we're doing right now that are where drugs, electronic pulses are being used instead of drugs. So the brain is where it's at.
I think I would agree that's potentially huge, and the companies that are in the space, particularly Posit Science and Lumosity, have only just gotten to an early step there.
NeuroTrack's another one that's really cool.
NeuroTrack is fascinating. They're not a B2C, they're a B2B, play.
True.
But what's fascinating is they can diagnose Alzheimer's up to 6 years before symptoms present. Nobody knows the implications of that yet because every drug that's been tried has been after somebody already displayed symptoms. So.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much. Really appreciate it. I'm going to check out that tongue thing.
Let me know how that works.